Hey, Dr. Jefferson here. I'm back continuing the podcast from the Region 2 annual meeting of the National Medical Association here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm here with my next guest, let me get it right. I'm here with my next guest, Rochelle Peterson-Ansari, a DEI consultant. Tell us, Rochelle, what you're all about here. Appreciate you being here.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Rochelle Peterson-Ansari and CEO and founder of Perceptions Unlimited. And in this, the work that I came to do today was actually to do a little research, right, to help meet with the families of the medical colleges and schools in the Pennsylvania area or in this region, right? So you extend, I believe, to DC as well. And so I'm trying to meet a few people and also do some market research. Yeah.
So how does your work in DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, for those who don't understand it, tell us, what are you doing in that? How did you get into that, and where are you with that now?
How it intersects. So interestingly enough, I set out with this company to work with educational institutions, higher education, but more traditional higher ed, and pre-K to 12 institutions. Actually, one of the members of this group, the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine reached out to me to help them design their own training for students. So now they have this microaggressions in medicine training that was developed as a result of a train-the-trainer with me. And then more recently, they reached out for us to do their faculty development, and by fall, we will have completed all of their faculty development. So now I did not set out to work with medical schools, but then as I worked with this organization, I realized that the end beneficiary for me was always the most vulnerable among us, and that's children. They need better doctors. They need doctors that are culturally competent, but also in the learning environment, just like any other student, medical students and employees need an inclusive environment where they can thrive, where they can be more productive, and where they stay.
Okay. What's your take on the political climate right now? Right now, DEI is getting a lot of backlash, especially in certain states, from the governor's mansion on down. To colleges, and where are you with that, and what do we have to do to counter that?
Okay, so where I am with it is that it obviously is working. That's why it's at the legislative level, right? So we get more backlash when it is working. And so the work that's being done in our colleges and universities, think about it. People are saying, don't talk about something that helps you include all people, that helps you honor the dignity of all humans. That's what's being asked. And what I would say, what we have to do, it really depends on who the we is, but in those institutions, we're going to keep focused on the end goal. So for medical schools, right, their goal is to, in the end, is to close this gap in health disparities, right? We can't teach what we don't know.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes? And so the end goal is to help those organizations get to health, to health equity, to close those gaps and social disparities. And they will do that, learning the concepts that are akin to what we call diversity, equity, inclusion. Do you have to call it that? No, you don't.
Because when I was coming up, if people were looking at you crazy because you were actually in the building, or you were an affirmative action hire,
or
you got into the school because of affirmative action. Now the dirty word is you're a DEI hire, or you got into this school, you're taking somebody else's spot because of DEI. What do you tell folks who work in this arena to deal with that kind of foolishness?
How to deal with it. So when you say the folks that work in it, you mean the people who work at the college?
Yeah, either at the college or at the Fortune 500 or whatever it may be.
Oh, right. Like how to deal with the affirmative action backlash, right?
Affirmative action. No, now it's DEI. Now they've turned it to DEI.
Right. Well, they're not the same, right? So both terms are not umbrellas. But the thing is about affirmative action of old was to hire, the way it was interpreted by people, not the way it was designed, but the way it was interpreted was to meet quotas. And we're literally, you hear that coming out of somebody's mouth in 2023, that's coming from great-grandpa and grandma. Yes, that
Right.
has come through the generations, because it never was intended to operate that way. It was always intended for qualified people, right? Grandma always needed to get on board because it included her at the time,
Right.
right? And then now, and it does focus on making affirmative hires. But what you have to do is set a goal first, right? You don't just randomly say, I'm going to take this person because they're a person of color. No, everything else has to be equal. And then we're going to hire affirmatively for where we have gaps or low numbers of representation. It does not only apply to people of color, though. So if you're looking in the nursing profession, they're mostly women. So you can affirmatively hire for men.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. See, I'm just learning that.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
All right. So, because I don't want to make this into a political discussion, but sometimes you just can't escape it. We want people we have organizations like the NMA, working in conjunction with the American Medical Association, the AMA, the podiatry section.
Yes.
We're working with our counterparts from the American Podiatric Medical Association, which is predominantly white. Okay. And we've come up with some DEI ideas over the pandemic. We had a bunch of Zoom meetings addressing these issues. You know, the whole George Floyd episode kind of was a springboard. I mean, we've always had the issue.
Right.
Right. George Floyd kind of brought it to the fore.
Yeah.
But it's something that we've always had to deal with. And so now that other populations are seeing it in a new light, where we're coming from, they may not still understand this completely.
Correct.
What we're talking about when we talk about DEI, we're not trying to get a leg up. You know, we're just trying to get on the playing field a lot of times.
Right.
Show us what we can do. Yeah, we can do the same thing. Sometimes even better.
Well, you know what, though? Not only is the misunderstanding in our families, we've actually gone through educational systems that have misinformed people. But here's the thing. This is why it's so important. We normalize different identities. So we normalize whiteness. We normalize, and what that means is for the white person, what they experience is normal. So it's very easy to think that someone who is not white, right, when somebody presents you with that argument that someone who's not white is inferior, because you've gotten that messaging implicitly, right, like subtly throughout the years, right? In our schooling, how many of those people do you see being heralded as our heroes, the people who contribute significantly to our history, right, that we learn in our schools? How much of that do you hear about people of color? Or do you hear like about one or two token folks? So people internalize that there's just a few people that are just as good as white people. Right? When there's some other force out there saying to you, well, they're inferior in subtle ways, right? In the movies that we see on television, right? Or the movies in the cinema. In our books, if there are many messages saying that a person is a criminal, right? A person of a certain identity is a criminal, your automatic response, right? Maybe not your conscious response, but your automatic unconscious response will be that when you see that person and you don't have authentic relationships with those kinds of people already, and I don't mean the one friend.
Right.
Okay. That when you have those kinds of relationships, or if you don't have them, you don't have much to counter that initial reaction, right? And we all know, how our brains work, right? Like we're going to go into fight or flight for something that scares us, right? Now, there are some people who will say, oh, certain people aren't scared of us, right? Like people of color and so forth. But really, there are automatic responses that we're having because we haven't had authentic relationship and everything around us that's socializing us in, all of these influences, your religion, your schools, etc., that are socializing us as we're growing up or communicating ideas that get buried. And if no one helps you bring it to your awareness, you can't do anything about it. So that's the mission I'm on. I want to help people understand that, help them bring those things to their own awareness. You don't have to tell me, you don't have to tell anybody else in the training session, but I help them do that. We've done that with thousands of people so far. We're trying to help them there, then I can hold you accountable. Get you to awareness, then I can hold you accountable, but I give you tools to work with you.
Okay.
Yes.
What would you say to institutions that are interested in starting DEI, but they're sitting on the fence, whether they're concerned about what the response would be,
Yes.
or what have you?
I would say reach out to us and give us a call and we can talk through it. There is no fee to get some information in maybe a 15 to 30 minute consultation, because there is always a way to get to our end destination. Now that's something that I learned from my mother with only a high school education, right? Who was always in the service industry, right, as a secretary or cleaning houses. And what I learned from her is that you're going to get your result one way or the other, albeit honorably and legally, right? But there's always one way to get there. And I think that's something that is a strength in the Black community that I know. Right? I know, we don't share a brain.
Right.
Right. But the Black people, the Black community that I know, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I heard someone mention that earlier.
I trained at the Brooklyn Hospital Center on DeKalb.
Did you get out of here?
Yeah, man.
So,
Junior's was my spot.
oh, wow. Really? So my family lives in that area.
Okay.
Yes. And I grew up in East New York.
Okay.
Yes. And so we made a way out of no way. Right? And that became I would even say it's a part of my DNA, but I know better, right? But I learned from that woman that there was no such word as can't, because it literally is not a word, but also that there is a way to get to your destination. And so I help people from that perspective. I enter the DEI world, or the diversity, equity, inclusion world, with an asset-based mindset. So I don't have the hard luck story for you. I had a lot of educational privilege. I'm trying to get everyone else that looks like me, that sounds like me, that has a background like me, and others who don't, right? I have heterosexual privilege. I'm a champion for our lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex, asexual populations, our questioning populations, and so forth. I am Christian, and I am a champion for any marginalized religious group in this country, right? And so what I want to give people is what I had from those privileged perspectives. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Well, so you're out there, you're doing God's work, sis.
Yes. Thank you for saying
If
that.
you're interested in getting together with Rochelle, learning about what she does,
Yes.
and how to get involved with her organization, her information will be listed in the description of this video.
Yeah.
Continue to stay tuned to this podcast as I continue to bring you more interesting topics and perspectives from members of the NMA in Region 2. See you on the next go.